Welcome. We have Dr. Preston Clark here. He is a recent Doctorate of Educational Technology graduate. You graduated in what year?
Just last year, just last December, 2018.
December 2018, and it is January 2019 as we're recording this interview. So I want to ask you a little bit about your experience with the DET program and how the DET program has impacted your career so far.
Okay.
So what is your occupation currently?
Well, currently I'm kind of semi-retired. I'm currently my position is as a professional tutor at Delta College, right here in Bay City, Michigan. But it's really a position that I took after my time as an educator at a large university in New York City. New York State. So.
Okay. So what is your educational and professional background?
Well, my background is somewhat diverse. I mean, it's everything between human services and business and information management, information systems management. So I kind of ran the gamut in my career. Most of my time, I spent 28 years at Cornell University in various positions, from administrator to lecturer in hospitality, information systems management, and business computing. I also did human services, where I managed group homes for people with disabilities. So I kind of had a pretty big gap or jump of different types of things. In terms of my background in education, it's I have a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in adult education, educational specialist in technology, educational technology, and then most recently this doctorate in education technology.
So what led you into working on the doctorate in educational technology?
Well, it's kind of funny the way that actually started. I retired from Cornell about 5 years ago, and my wife is from Michigan, and so we basically moved. She moved back home. Basically, is what we did. And I decided that I really wanted to keep my hands in the technology field, since I've been teaching information systems management and business computing for a number of years. I still wanted to keep in touch with the technology. So the best thing that I could do was touch base with some of the local colleges, which I taught at Saginaw Valley for about a year, and then moved over to Delta because I like the tutoring aspect of working one-on-one with students, and not having to grade, which is even better. But what got me into the program was my wife happened to see it listed. One of her cousins was actually signing up for the program, and it was a new program. DET is a new program. It's just over 3.5 years old, and I decided that I had gone back for a doctoral degree about 10 years ago, and I didn't quite finish it because of the demands that I had at the university at the time. And so I really wanted to kind of clean up and finish off what I had started. And so I applied for the program and was accepted. And the rest is history. I was able to complete my degree here just this past December. Yeah.
So it looks like there was a fairly quick turnaround for your degree. So how long did it take you to go to complete the entire program?
Well, because I had a lot of time on my hands, I think that's what really worked for me. Being how it's an online program and it works in a cohort basis, I was one of the first in the first cohort of the program. We completed it within 3.5 years. Seven of the original 12 of us finished just this past December. So 3.5 years from beginning to end was what it took. It took a lot of work, I might add, because typically that's unusual for any kind of doctoral program to take it in such a relatively short period. Usually it takes people 5 to 6 or 7 years to even finish. And I know the last one that I was working on, I got to 10 years and I still couldn't finish it. I just didn't have the last oomph to do it. I was ABD, and so I took time off, came back, and was able to do this one. So I was ready for it by then.
So and you were working part-time as you were working on the doctorate, correct?
Yes, yes, I was. But it wasn't for me. I was one of the few in the cohort. Actually, I probably was the only one in the cohort that was working part-time rather than full-time.
Okay.
The other folks in the cohort were all full-time people working in various types of positions, from education through business and other jobs out there. Yeah.
Fantastic. So what was your experience as you went through the DET program?
Well, I'd say, what was unique is that we were the first to actually experience the program as it was actually growing. It was kind of building around our cohort initially, and so that first year was spent. We averaged roughly 2 courses per semester, with lots of little activities in between to kind of prepare us for doing some really good research and an understanding of those dynamics that take place. I mean, a number of students had taken a previous master's program within CMU. I wasn't one of those. I was kind of coming in from the outside, I would call myself, and had to adjust to that kind of thinking process. And the fact that the program was it was completely online, which was a unique environment. Yeah.
Fantastic. So as you were working through the DET, you of course had a dissertation that you had to write up. So what was your dissertation topic? And can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I could tell you a lot about it, actually. But in a nutshell, the study that I was working on, my focus was on looking at how people use their multiple devices, the electronic devices that they have, and how they were using that in terms of their academic study. So for me, it was looking at how people use their smartphones, how they use the tablets that they may have, how they use their laptops. So mostly these mobile capable devices that they would utilize, and they would utilize them in very different ways. And so my real focus was on how they did it in accessing online services such as a learning management system, such as Blackboard.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did this at the community college that I work at, and created a survey that I sent out to over 10,000 students, and got a pretty good return. I got about 1,600 responses. So it led into a lot of information, of which I'm still looking at, believe it or not, even after the dissertation is finished.
So what do you think your major findings so far from that data have been?
Well, some clear indications. Looking at how people use their devices is still a relatively new area of study. It's only been really looked at within the past 6 or 7 years. Since the coming of the iPhone, really back in 2007. So people were starting to pay attention to it. But the interest that I saw in it was really how productive were people being with it. And so we first have to look at how are they even using it. And so my studies are one of the first out there that's really looking at that kind of behavior. And what I found was that people use devices for various reasons. They'll use their smartphones for a quick information check, for a quick communication, maybe even an initial note-taking of points for activities that they're doing online. But then some of them will actually transfer that work over to their laptops or other devices that have wider screens, better resources for actually doing more deep thought, critical thinking kinds of work. So it's kind of interesting to note that while everybody's walking around with smartphones, some people are actually using them simultaneously. They're like multitasking with the devices. They might look up something on their smartphone while they're writing a paper, rather than using the software on their computer to do it. So it's kind of interesting. It was interesting to discover that.
So since completing your dissertation, what has the impact of your study had on maybe your professional life, or even the wider, something wider in your career or someone else's field?
Well, good question. It's actually evolving even as we speak. Currently, I'm working with the college which I did the study at, And as they're looking at new learning management systems, some of the information that I've provided with them is useful in terms of how students are accessing their systems now and utilizing them. So already there's an impact to the college as they're trying to make decisions about what's the best tools to use, but given the way students are actually currently using their devices. So that's been an initially major impact. And this coming year, I'm hoping to publish some articles from my dissertation, and I'm currently working on those, identifying some of the key behaviors that I've identified and saw how different people are using the technologies. And so now I expect I'll get at least one or two articles published from there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And well, covers the next two questions, right? The outside reach and, well, I guess number 10, what is the impact of DET had on your career?
Well, I'd say in terms of my career, I'm one of those odd people in terms of the career. I mean, I kind of did it backwards. I mean, I've already completed my career in education in terms of the teaching that I've done and the expertise that I have. But what it has done for me, I think, is kind of expanded my opportunity to influence the field of education. And that now my goal is to go out and do more consulting with both institutions of higher education as well as K-12, now that I've got some understanding of what goes on there, which was really good for the program. I really got to understand the dynamics that are going on in the K-12 realm of education. And that was some good eye-openers for me. And I hope to go back and apply that as I help districts look at and really analyze what they're doing with the technologies that they have in place.
And for future students who are thinking about applying for DET or who are starting DET soon, would you have any advice for them?
Well, I'd say first and foremost is really have an understanding and look into what DET is about, and the fact that, I think that the initial belief is that a degree in education technology is only for people who are teaching an education at the K-12 level. And I'd say that that's the first thing to rule out, that there's more to using technologies and the approach to that in a variety of fields. And that's why I think I represent, the business and training and development kinds of fields where an understanding of the educational tools will help with training and development. And so I think it's important for the person who's considering it to think about where does that fit within the kind of work that they do. And they'll find that it's incredibly a flexible degree in terms of looking at the way that we implement learning within the environments in which we are a part of.
Do you have any last thoughts about any of the material from the interview questions or about the DET or the impact of it?
Well, I'd say that one thing about the program, which I think worked really well for us, is that there's a camaraderie that can be built between people in a cohort. Being online, one assumes that you're working individually, that you're working by yourself, and you have no contact with the outside world other than you and the instructor, which you may or may not even see. And the reality is that that's far from being true. In fact, every course has some opportunity of actually visually interacting, such as we're talking now, through either this kind of a conferencing video software and an interaction that way. And some people have even gotten to meet each other. And I think those opportunities really help to enhance the learning. The more that you can actually visually see the expressions of people's faces, the discussions that you have, those have really benefited the most. And I would encourage that people who come into the program from this point on realize that that's a key part of the learning, that it's not necessarily what you are learning from a course, but how you're interacting with everybody. And the visual impact is such a powerful tool that I encourage people to take advantage of it. In fact, one of the things that we're still continuing to do is some of us in the cohort who just graduated are still online helping our fellow cohort folks who haven't finished yet. So we still meet regularly. And a few of us are actually helping the rest of the other cohorts who have come behind us. We offer currently we are meeting once a month with the other cohorts, and so they can ask us questions about how we've progressed and what we're doing, and we can help them in terms of wherever stages they are within their own dissertation program.